In this video, we're going to add rational expressions. So when we're adding rational expressions, we want to first factor any denominators that we can. So we're looking just at the denominators. Our first denominator is 3x plus 4. Those terms do not have a common factor. So 3x plus 4 is something that we cannot simplify. So we know that our first fraction is going to stay the same. So we're going to add 2x over 3x plus 4 plus we're going to leave our numerator and factor our denominator. So our numerator is 4x squared minus 11x minus 12. And we want to take our denominator and try to factor that quadratic trinomial. So I'm looking at A, B, and C, and I want to determine two numbers that multiply to A times C, which in this case is 6 times negative 4. And so 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. So I want two numbers that multiply to negative 24 that also add to B, so they add to 5. So when I'm doing this, I'm looking at what are the factors of 24. Since it's negative, I know one has to be negative. Since they're adding to a positive 5, I know that the larger number needs to be positive. So if I'm thinking about the factors of 24, those are 1 and 24. And so if that the first one's negative, that's going to give us a 23 for the sum. So that's not the right answer. Negative 2 times 12 is going to give us a sum of 10. And so we know that those aren't the answers. Negative 3 times 8 will give us a sum of 5. So that means that the two numbers that fit this product sum are the numbers negative 3 and positive 8. So since A is not 1, we're taking our A term and our C terms, so 6x squared and then minus 4, and we're keeping those, but this middle term, the 5x, instead of writing 5x, we're going to put minus 3x plus 8. Okay, so x. And so we're using negative 3 and positive 8 to rewrite 5x. We're doing this so that we can use grouping to factor this polynomial now. And so I have 6x squared minus 3x. Those two terms have a common factor of 3x. And when I factor out that 3x, I'm left with 2x minus 1. So if I divide 6x squared by 3x, I get 2x. If I divide negative 3x by 3x, I get negative 1. So based on the way that grouping works, I should get a 2x minus 1 here. And so I can see that I made a mistake when I was copying my problem. So that shouldn't have been a minus 5. That should have been a minus 4. So let's fix that. And so looking at that, the common factor between 8x and negative 4 is a positive 4. So remember that we do want to always write whatever sign was in front of that first term with our GCF. So we can factor out a positive 4. So what this tells us is that these two terms now have a common factor of 2x minus 1, which leaves, if I factor that out, 3x plus 4 as the second factor. So that means that 6x squared plus 5x minus 4 factors to 2x minus 1 times 3x plus 4. So the purpose of factoring the denominators is so that if they share a common factor, we know that that's going to be a piece of our common denominator. So we always want to find the least common denominator, the LCD, by finding the LCM, the least common multiple, between the denominators. So since I see that they both have a 3x plus 4, that tells me that my common denominator or my common multiple is going to include that 3x plus 4. Additionally, this one that we just factored has a factor of 2x minus 1. So that tells me that I need to have that in my common denominator because it appears in my second denominator. So looking at the first denominator, it only has the 3x plus 4. So that means that I'm going to have to change this fraction using a fraction of 2 factors to get it to have the 2x minus 1. So that means that I'm going to take my first fraction, 2x over 3x plus 4, and I'm going to multiply the whole thing by the missing factor, 2x minus 1 over 2x minus 1. Because now both of my denominators have a 2x minus 1 and a 3x plus 4. So I'm just going to rewrite the second fraction so that we can see both of them now have the same denominator. The numerator for the first one, though, is not simplified. So what I need to do in order to write these together as a single fraction is I want to simplify my numerator. I'm going to leave my denominator factor throughout the whole process. I'm never going to multiply this out because my ultimate goal is to be able to cancel out a factor if something is also a factor in the numerator. So I'm going to take and multiply my 2x times the 2x minus 1 that I multiplied by to make my common denominator. So my numerator is going to become 4x squared minus 2x. I did not change the second fraction, so that numerator is going to stay the same. I'm just going to write it now together as a single fraction. So plus 4x squared minus 11x minus 12. So finally, I want to combine like terms and then see if I can factor the result. So if I have 4x squared and 4x squared, that's going to give me 8x squared. And then negative 2x minus 11x is negative 13x. And our final part is a negative 12. So our numerator is 8x squared minus 13x minus 12. And our denominator is 2x minus 1 times 3x plus 4. So our last step is to determine if we can factor our numerator. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply again a times c, so 8 times negative 12, which is negative 96. So negative 96, they need to add to b, which is negative 13. So if I'm looking at the factors of negative 96, those would be where the larger number is negative because the sum has to be negative. So I'm looking at 1 times negative 96, which definitely is not negative 13. That's negative 95. Then what I want to look at is 2 times negative 48, which would be negative 44. So that's still too large. So 3 does go into 96. That's going to go and be negative 32. So that's going to be negative 29. So our numbers are still too large. So then 4 will work. So 4 times negative, not 36, 26. So 4 times negative, no. How did I just like 24? 4 times negative 24 is going to make negative 96, which that's negative 20. Okay, so we're getting closer. Our number is negative 13. So 5, if I'm thinking about 5, 5 is not going to go into 96 because it doesn't end with a 5 or a 0. But 6 will. And so 6 goes into 96. That's going to be 6 times negative 16 is going to make that. And notice that that's negative 10. And so because the number that I was looking for should be between these two values, and we already talked about the only number between those is 5, and 5 doesn't work, that means that this is actually prime. And so I cannot factor the numerator, which means that I cannot simplify the fraction. So this answer is just 8x squared minus 13x minus 12 all over 2x minus 1 times 3x plus 4. So again, when I'm factoring adding together some rational expressions, you have to factor your denominators to create your common denominator. Then multiply by whatever factors are missing in each fraction in the numerator and denominator, because when I do that, I'm really not changing the expression's value, I'm just changing the way that it looks. Then I only multiply the numerators ever, combine like terms, try to factor so that I can cancel in my denominator.